Good morning, students. Today I'll be taking the short story How Much Land Does a Man Need by Leo Tolstoy. So, Leo Tolstoy, his real name is Count Lev Nikolaevich Tolstoy, 1828-1910. Now, he's usually referred to as Leo Tolstoy. He's a Russian writer and he is regarded as one of the greatest authors of all time. He's born to an aristocratic Russian family, and basically he is known for his two novels. They're very famous. One is War and Peace, written in 1869, and Anna Karina in 1877. And now both these works are often cited as pinnacles of realist fiction. So the story, How Much Land Does a Man Require? It is a short story about a man named Pahom. It talks about a man's greed for land, and what happens to this man. Now, James Joyce once wrote to his daughter that this story is the greatest story that the literature of the world knows. So you find this is a very interesting story. Now, before I introduce the story, let me introduce the main characters. Now, the main characters in the story are the two sisters. One is the younger sister, who is also Pahom's wife, the elder sister, who is married to a merchant. Then you have the main lead or the story's protagonist, and that is Pahom. And then, of course, you have the devil. So, these are the main characters. Now, the other characters in the story are the Bashkirs, the traveling peasant, the passing merchant, the old soldier, the landowner. She's a unknown lady landowner, and of course there is a local peasant known by the name Simon. So these are the other minor characters. So now when we talk about the story, you find the protagonist, a home, overhears his wife and his sister-in-law. Like I said, you have the two sisters. So the story begins with conversation between these two sisters, and you find the main character, that is Pahom. He actually overhears his wife and his sister-in-law argue over the merits of town and peasant farm life. So now the sister who's married to Pahom, actually she's married to a peasant. So she talks about, or she argues and supports the farm life. And you find the elder sister who basically lives in the town and leads a very wealthy life. She begins to support a cosmopolitan lifestyle. And there is a sort of an argument between these two sisters. And you find Pahom, he overhears these arguments and then he begins to think to himself. He says, if I had plenty of land, I shouldn't fear the devil himself. And it is so funny that you find Pahom overhears the argument of his wife and the sister in law, and the devil overhears what Pahom thinks. All right. And unbeknownst to him, the devil is sitting behind the oven listening to him. The devil abruptly accepts this challenge. A short time later, a landlady in the village decides to sell her estate, and the peasants of the village buy as much of that land as they can. So Pahom himself purchases some land, and by working on the extra land is able to repay his debts and live a more comfortable life. However, he becomes very possessive of his land and has constant arguments with his neighbors. He then moves on to a larger area of land at another commune where they grow, crops together. All right, but but he has to grow the crops on rented land. So basically, he does not own it, but he has he can own the produce. So this irritates him. Finally, after buying and selling a lot of fertile and good land, he is introduced to the Bashkirs. So Bashkirs are a very interesting group of people whom we are introduced to in the latter part of the story. And is told that these Bashkirs are basically simple minded people and they own a huge amount of land. So, because this man is basically greedy, what he does is Pahom, he goes to them to buy as much of their land for as low as a price as he can negotiate. And you find these Bashkirs are very unusual, they are very unique sort of people. Now, their offer is very unusual for a sum of 1000 rubles. Now, rubles is basically the Russian monetary unit. Okay, so that is a amount, that is the money. So, for a sum of 1000 rubles, Pahom can walk around as large an area as he wants, starting at daybreak, marking his route with a spade along the way. If he returns to his starting point by sunset that day, all the land his route encloses will be his. But if he does not reach his starting point, he will lose his money and receive no land. So this is the negotiation, or this is the agreement that is drawn between Pahom and Bashkir. So Pahom believes it is a wonderful deal. He is delighted and he believes he can cover a great distance. So from daybreak till sunset, whichever land he is able to, cross and mark with his spade, he will be able to get all that land. So he's thrilled. He believes that he can get a lot of land because after all, he'll begin, crossing. He'll begin his route early in the morning until sunset. He has time. So what he does is he stays out as late as possible, marking out land just until before the sunset. So towards the end, he realizes he is far from the starting point and then runs back as fast as he can to the waiting Bashkirs. So you have to understand he's already crossed a lot of land. So he's really tired, but he is determined to come back to the starting point. Only if he comes back to the starting point will he get the land. So he's so desperate that he rushes and finally arrives at the starting point just as the sun sets. The Bashkirs cheer his good fortune. But what happens to Pahom? He's so exhausted from running and working hard from early dawn. He drops dead. And he had brought a worker with him. So his servant buries him in an ordinary grave only 6 feet long. So that act of burying basically lets you know as to how much land a man needs. Again, it answers questions like why are we greedy? What is the point? Why are people so materialistic? Why is everybody chasing after money? Because after all, at the end of the day, what do you want? You only need 6 feet. So you find with Pahom's burial in an ordinary grave of 6 feet long, basically or ironically answers the question that is also the title of the story: how much land does a man need? So, now, girls, if you can take page 150, I'll begin the chapter. Now, this is a very long short story. It is divided into several sections. In your text, you will find that it is divided into 9 sections altogether, but we will focus on the story aspect. So, if you can follow the storyline, that will be more than enough. So, the story begins with The two sisters. You have the elder sister coming to meet the younger sister, and it is this younger sister who is married to Pahom. An elder sister came to visit her younger sister in the country. The elder was married to a tradesman in town, the younger to a peasant in the village. As the sisters sat over their tea, talking, the elder began to boast of the advantages of town life, saying how comfortable they lived there, how well they dressed, what fine clothes her children wore, what good things they ate and drank, and how she went to the theatre, promenades, and entertainment. The younger sister was piqued and in turn disparaged the life of a tradesman and stood up for that of a peasant. So you find the younger sister does not really give up. Now she begins to argue that it is her life, that is, her life is much better than that of her sister. So you find the elder sister begins to boast about a wonderful cosmopolitan life that she's living, she's enjoying, and you find the younger sister uh, working hard but enjoying her peasant life, even though it is ordinary, she likes it. So you find at the very outset there is this huge contrast between the lifestyle of both these sisters. Now, it also demonstrates the hierarchy of the social atmosphere of the 19th century Russia, where, like I believe in other parts of the world, an individual is basically judged by wealth, right? You are judged by your material possession, how much you have. If you are wealthy, then you are a worthy individual. So you find this elder sister, she is uh, associated or she belongs to a high social standing, that is, she belongs to a high class. And you find the younger sister, she does not really, she's quite resentful of the elder sister. And she believes that her life as a peasant is superior, far better. Now the younger sister says, I would not change my way of life for you, said she. We may live roughly, but at least we are free from anxiety. You live in better style than we do, but though you often earn more than you need, you are very likely to lose all you have. You know the proverb, loss and gain are brothers twain. It often happens that people who are wealthy one day are begging their bread the next. Our way is safer. Though a peasant's life is not a fat one, it is a long one. We shall never grow rich, but we shall always have enough to eat. So now she uses the proverb, loss and gain are brothers twain. Now here you find the younger sister portrays her moral superiority. You find that the younger sister is portrayed as someone who is better because you find she has to work harder and she avoids the evil vices that you would find in the city. So now she also uses the proverb which basically says that loss always follows gain. And she says that these are always, they like the twin sides of the coin. And she says she prefers a simple life without the temptation of the city. So she says that she equates hard work with morality. And now she says that we may not grow rich, we may not become very rich, but at least we are happier, we are better. So you find the elder sister said sneeringly. So you find the elder sister mocks and she's quite contemptuous. And she says, enough? Yes. If you like to share with pigs and calves, what do you know of elegance of manners? However much your good man may slave, you will die as you are living on a dung heap, and your children the same. So you find the elder sister basically insulting. Their lifestyle, the younger sister's lifestyle, it's almost as if, she has some sort of a disdain. She does not consider a peasant life to be anything, good or superior. So you find she mocks at the younger sister. Well, what of that? Replied the younger. Of course, our work is rough and coarse, but on the other hand, it is sure, and we need not bow to anyone. But you in your towns are surrounded by temptations. Today, all may be right, but tomorrow the evil one may tempt your husband. So here she's indirectly saying that the devil, again, may tempt your husband with cards, wines, or women, and all will go to ruin. Don't such things happen often enough? So she's talking about their lifestyle, the cosmopolitan lifestyle, which is filled with temptations, which lacks morality, or there is banal morality in such a lifestyle. So she says that such a lifestyle is something to be worried about, because one day everything may be fine, but the very next day you will find your husband chasing after things like cars, wine, or women, and everything will fall apart. Pahom, the master of the house, is lying on top of the oven. So you find Pahom was listening. Pahom was listening to the argument of his wife as well as his sister-in-law. And he listened to the women's chatter. It is perfectly true, thought he. Busy as we are from childhood tilling Mother Earth, we peasants have no time to let any nonsense settle in our heads. Our only trouble is that we haven't land enough. If I had plenty of land, I should fear the devil himself. I shouldn't fear the devil himself. So you find Pahom actually agrees with his sister-in-law and says, yes, to a certain extent, it is right. We do not really have a life as such. We are always busy working on the land, and we've been so busy tilling Mother Earth that we really don't have time for anything else. Now he says that the only problem is that we don't have land. We don't own land. And then he expresses a wish. And then he says that if I had enough land, I would not fear the devil. I won't have anything to worry about at all. Even if the devil were to appear, I would not be afraid of the devil. So the women, meanwhile, finished their tea, chatted a while about dress, and then cleared away the tea things and lay down to sleep. But the devil had been sitting behind the oven and heard all that was said. He was he was pleased that the peasant's wife had led her husband into boasting, and that he had said that if he had plenty of land, he would not fear the devil himself. So you find the devil had been sitting behind the oven and had heard all that was said. And he was very happy to hear this man, that is Pahom, boasting that he would not fear the devil if he had enough of land. So he thinks that it is a challenge, and the devil says, all right, thought the devil. We will have a tussle, or we will have a fight or a struggle. I will give you land enough, and by means of that land, I will get you into my power. Let me see you, not succumb to temptation. Let me see if I can defeat you. Now, this is what the devil decides. So, we moving on to the second section. Close to the village, there lived a lady, a small landowner who had an estate of about 300 acres. So she's one of the minor characters we discussed earlier. She had lived on good terms with the peasants until she engaged as her steward an old soldier who took to burdening people with fines. So you find the next section talks about what happened in the village. So close to their village, there was a landowner. She was a lady landowner, and you find she had land. She had around 300 acres of land, and she was a very pleasant sort of a landowner. She did not really bother the peasants at all. But after a while, she hired one old soldier. Till then, everything was okay. Until she engaged the steward, the soldier as a steward, everything was okay because once a soldier, the old soldier was given the task of managing her land. He began to burden people with fines. So even though the landlady did not really impose fine, the old soldier fines the peasants, began to fine peasants out of spite rather than out of need. So now you find the old soldiers you find sudden appearance of suspicious. We can think maybe it is the devil who has appeared in the form of an old soldier just to make things interesting. Now you find however careful Pahom tried to be, it happened again and again that now a horse of his got among the lady's oats, now a cow strayed into her garden, now his calves found their way into her meadows, and he always had to pay a fine. Pahom paid up but grumbled, and going home in a temper was rough with his family. All through that summer, Pahom had much trouble because of the steward, and he was even glad when winter came and the cattle had to be stable. Though he grudged the fodder when they could no longer graze in the pasture land, at least he was free from the anxiety about them. So you find Pahom tries very hard to keep his animals away from the landowner's land. But somehow or the other, his animals found their way into that land, and the soldier kept imposing fines. So with the end of summer, he had to stable all his animals, even though he was not very happy with it. He was at least happy that he did not have to pay any more fines to the soldier. So in the winter, the news got about that the lady, that is this landowner was going to sell her land, and that the keeper of the inn on the high road was bargaining for it. When the peasants heard this, they were very much alarmed. So during winter, they also got to hear another news. And what was this news? That the keeper of the inn, the innkeeper on the high road, he wanted to buy all that land from this lady. Now, when peasants who actually depended on this land, they heard about this bargaining for land, they were extremely alarmed. Well, thought they, if the innkeeper gets the land, he will worry us with fines worse than the lady steward. We all depend on that estate. So now you find the peasants did not really want that innkeeper to get that land because he was far worse than the old soldier. So they all thought, no, if this man gets land, if he becomes the owner, then he will start charging us fines worse than the lady steward. And they all knew that they were, dependent on that estate, on that land in that estate. So the peasants went on behalf of their commune and asked the lady not to sell the land to the innkeeper, offering her a better price for it themselves. So you find these peasants, they all got together and they went and asked the lady. They told the lady, they begged the lady not to sell her land to the innkeeper, and they promised, they said that they would give her a better price, a better offer for her land. So the lady agreed to let them have it. Then the peasants tried to arrange to the commune to buy the whole estate so that it might be held by all in common. They met twice to discuss it, but could not settle the matter. The evil one sowed discord among them, and they could not agree. So you find the peasant community, they got together and they decided that they should all put in money and they should buy the entire land. They should buy this landlady's land, and they should, they would own it in common. They would hold that land in common, and they wanted to discuss how they would arrange, how they would make arrangements for the purchase of the land. So what they did, they met twice. They met twice to discuss it. But by then, the evil one, that is temptation, the devil, had started influencing them. So the evil one sowed discord among them. They started fighting amongst themselves. They could not agree. They could not come to any agreement with the land, about the land. So what happened? So they decided to buy the land individually, each according to his means. And the lady agreed to this plan as she had to the other. Presently, Pahom heard that a neighbor of his was buying 50 acres, and the lady had consented to accept one half in cash and to wait a year for the other half. Pahom felt envious. Look at that, thought he. The land is all being sold, and I shall get none of it. So he spoke to his wife. Other people are buying, said he, and we must also buy 20 acres or so. Life is becoming impossible. That steward is simply crushing us with his fines. So they put their heads together and considered how they could manage to buy it. They had 100 rubles laid by. They sold a colt, one half of their beast, hired out one of their sons as a laborer, and took his wages in advance, borrowed the rest from a brother-in-law, and so scraped together half the purchase money. So you find the peasants, they could not agree, they were not in agreement with the purchase, with the terms of the purchase. So what they decided to buy land individually according to whatever they could manage. So he heard that one neighbor of Pahom heard that his neighbor was about to buy 50 acres and that the lady was ready to accept one half in cash and get the rest in installment. So now Pahom was extremely jealous. He also wanted land. So he told his wife, other people are buying land, we also should buy at least 20 acres. So now they decided, they all got together as a family, they got together and they decided, they started thinking about how to manage, how to buy land. So all they had 100 rubles with them. Then what they did was they sold a colt of theirs. They sold a horse. Then one half of their beast. Then they hired out one of their sons as laborer, and they asked for advance money. They borrowed some money from their brother-in-law, and somehow or the other, they managed to get half the purchase money. So after doing this, Pahom chose out a farm of 40 acres, some of it wooded, it was a forest area, and went to the lady to bargain for it. And finally, they came to an agreement, and he shook hands with her upon it and paid her in deposit in advance. Then they went to town and signed the deed, he paying half the price down and undertaking to pay the remainder within 2 years. So Pahom chose a farm of 40 acres. Some of the land was, land that was easily cultivable. The other parts were forest, pure forest land. And then finally, they came to an agreement. He shook hands with the landlady and paid her some amount. So now Pahom had land of his own. He borrowed seed and sowed it on the land he had bought. The harvest was a good one, and within a year he had managed to pay off his debts both to the lady and to his brother-in-law. So within a year, he was able to manage. He was able to manage. He had a good harvest, so he paid off all his debts to the landlady as well as the money he had borrowed from his brother-in-law. So he became, for the first time, he became a landowner, a landlord, plowing and sowing his own land, making hay on his own land, cutting his own trees, and feeding his cattle on his own pasture. When he went out to plow his fields, or to look at his growing corn, or at his grass meadows, his heart would fill with joy. The grass that grew and the flowers that blossomed there seemed to him unlike any that grew elsewhere. Formerly, when he had passed by that land, it appeared the same as any other land. But now it seemed quite different. So now you find Pahom had become a landowner. So he's very proud of his land. And earlier, he used to see this land, and this land was like any other land. But now, because he owned that land, it was his land, and he was very proud of his land. He was so happy and proud of his land that uh, you know his land started looking better, started appearing to be better than all the other land put together. And each time he would look at his land, his heart would be filled with joy. He was so proud. He was so proud and happy with his land that he felt that his land was much better, and looked really different from the other land that was right across his own land. So that is the end of uh, the section. That is the second section. I will deal with the third, fourth, and fifth in the next